Imagine you have not eaten in 2 days. Not skipped breakfast. Not a little hungry. 2 days of walking, watching, waiting, and saving your strength because today is supposed to be the day the hunt finally works. You know where the herd went. Yesterday, you found the prints. You saw the broken grass. You followed the bend in the valley. You remember the place where the animals crossed the soft ground, and in your head, the whole route is already there. One good hunt, and your group eats. One bad day, and the children go to sleep hungry again. So you step out before the light is fully up, and then the rain begins. Not the kind of rain you hear through a window while you pull a blanket over your shoulders. This is heavy, cold, sideways rain. The kind that turns dust into mud, stone into glass, and footprints into nothing. It falls all day, then all night. Then the next morning. And it still does not stop. Now, the hunt has not simply become harder. The hunt may have disappeared. The tracks are gone first. The hoofprints that told you where the animals went are melting into brown water. The mud keeps moving. Every drop is erasing yesterday's information. Then the ground becomes dangerous. Wet rock under bare feet is not an inconvenience. It is a trap. One slip can twist an ankle. One twisted ankle can mean you cannot hunt, cannot run, cannot keep up with the group, and cannot escape when something follows you home. Then the river starts climbing. The quiet stream near camp becomes louder. The edges vanish. The safe crossing is no longer safe. And inside the shelter, the fire starts to weaken. That is the moment the rain becomes more than weather. Because that fire is not a cozy detail in the background. It is heat. It is light. It is protection. It is cooked food. It is dry skin. It is the thing that keeps predators unsure about coming too close. It is the small piece of the sun your group has managed to trap on the ground. And now the sky is trying to kill it. So you are not bored. You are trapped. For most of human history, rain was not background noise, it was a test. And sometimes it was a crisis that arrived from above and changed every rule at once. Today, rain is a mood. You close the window. You make coffee. You put on a show. You hear the water outside, and the room feels warmer because you are not in it. For you, rain makes the world softer. For a human being 50,000 years ago, that same sound could mean hunger, injury, cold, floodwater, predators, and a fire that might never come back if it died. And this is where the story gets interesting. Because the question is not just, how did ancient humans survive rain? The better question is, what did rain force them to become? The first danger was cold. A wet body loses heat far faster than a dry one. Once skin, hair, fur, hide, or plant fiber is soaked, the body has to spend precious energy just staying warm. Add wind, night, high ground, or a long storm, and the danger rises quickly. Hypothermia is not only an Arctic problem, it is a wet body problem. And ancient humans did not have waterproof jackets hanging by the door. Their protection came from fire, shelter, clothing, bedding, and knowledge. If any one of those failed during a long rain, the whole group felt it. The second danger was flooding. Caves and rock shelters were useful because they kept rain off your head, but many of them sit near slopes, valleys, rivers, or drainage paths. A shelter can become a funnel. A dry floor can become a stream. A place that saved you yesterday can betray you today. Archaeologists have found flood sediment in occupied caves. That means water came through places where people had lived, worked, slept, and kept fires. Imagine watching the floor of your home turn into a river. The third danger may have been the most frightening. Rain compresses the world. Humans look for dry shelter. Prey animals look for dry shelter. Predators look for dry shelter. And a cave does not care who arrived first. There are sites where human remains and large predator remains appear in the same layers. Some human bones show marks that match big cat teeth. Rain did not need to kill you directly. It could simply push you into the same dry space as something hungry. So, in a storm, the world shrinks. The open land becomes mud. The tracks vanish. The river rises. The cave gets crowded. The night moves closer. And in the middle of all that, one job becomes more important than almost everything else. Keep the fire alive. This is the part modern people underestimate. We think of fire as something you make. Strike a match. Click a lighter. Turn a knob. Press a button. But, for much of human history, fire may have been less like a tool you could create anytime, and more like a living thing you had to keep from dying. Humans controlled fire for a very long time. Evidence for controlled fire goes back hundreds of thousands of years, and possibly earlier at some sites. But controlling fire and starting fire from nothing are not the same skill. If your fire died, you might not be able to simply make another one. You might need an ember, and people carried embers. A glowing coal could be wrapped in green leaves, packed in ash, or placed inside a slow smoldering fungus. Tinder fungus can hold heat for hours. In the right conditions, it is almost like a biological lighter. Think about that. Your group's future might depend on a tiny hidden glow inside a lump of fungus. If it survived, you had warmth. If it died, the dark became more dangerous. So when rain lasted for days, someone had to guard the fire. Not casually, carefully. Wet wood smokes. Too little fuel starves the flame. Too much damp material chokes it. A bad draft can scatter sparks. A leak in the shelter can end everything. Sleep too deeply at the wrong moment, and the fire becomes ash. Keeping the fire alive was not housework. It was a life support system. But if the fire survived, the crisis changed shape. You still could not hunt well. You still could not travel far. You still could not risk every adult slipping across wet rock or crossing a swollen river. So the group stayed. And when humans stay in one place, with firelight, raw materials, tools, children, elders, and hours they did not choose, something important happens. They work. This is where rain becomes more than a threat. It becomes forced time. The archaeological record is full of caves and rock shelters that were not just sleeping places. They were workshops, stone tools in different stages of production, flakes scattered where someone sat and shaped a blade. Broken bone, shells, pigments, fibers, ash, hearths, and repeated surfaces where people returned again and again. A spear point is not always made during the hunt. Often, it is made before the hunt, when there is time to sit, time to choose the stone, time to strike it wrong, correct it, sharpen it, test it, and make the next one better. Rain did not invent tool making. That would be too neat, and archaeology cannot prove that. But rain created a situation where careful preparation mattered more. If tomorrow the herd returns, your point needs to be ready. If the next cold night comes, the clothing needs repair. If the shelter leaks, the binding needs to hold. If yesterday's blade broke, today is when you replace it. That is the hidden reversal. The storm stops the hunt, but it starts the work that makes the next hunt possible. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found a 100,000-year-old ochre processing workshop. Abalone shells used like mixing bowls, ground pigment, tools for stirring and applying it. That is not random mess. That is a system. Someone collected materials. Someone processed them. Someone knew what to mix, where to mix it, and what the result was for. Ochre may have been used for symbolic marking, decoration, hide treatment, or other practical purposes. The exact use can be debated, but the larger point is hard to miss. Ancient humans were not just reacting to the world. They were preparing materials for future use. That means planning. That means memory. That means a group with enough knowledge to turn dirt, shell, bone, and time into something useful. And then there were needles. Bone needles appeared tens of thousands of years ago. Some are delicate, precise tools with tiny drilled eyes. You do not make something like that while running from a predator. You make it when your hands are steady, your eyes are close to the work, and the fire gives you enough light to see the hole you are trying not to break. A needle changes clothing. Clothing changes cold. Cold changes survival. So a rainy day inside a shelter is not wasted time if someone is sewing the thing that keeps a child warm a month later. This is where one of the best viewer insights matters. Ancient humans were not less intelligent versions of us waiting to become modern. They were experts in a world that punished ignorance immediately. A modern person can look at a plant and see green. An ancient person might need to know whether that plant is food, poison, medicine, insect repellent, tinder, fiber, dye, bedding, or a waste of time. That kind of knowledge does not come from being primitive. It comes from paying attention because your life depends on it. Rain did not make humans smart by itself. But rain may have revealed which groups knew how to use intelligence when the easy plan disappeared. And one of the clearest examples of that intelligence is rope. Rope sounds boring until you imagine a world without it. Without rope, tying a shelter becomes harder. Carrying bundles becomes harder. Binding stone to wood becomes harder. Making traps, nets, bags, handles, repairs, boats, and complex tools becomes harder. Rope is one of those inventions that disappears into the background because it is too useful. But making rope requires a powerful idea. Weak fibers can become strong if they are twisted together correctly. That is not just a thing. That is a principle. At a Neanderthal site in France, researchers found a tiny fragment of twisted plant fiber, direct evidence of string technology tens of thousands of years old. At Hohlefels Cave in Germany, archaeologists found an ivory tool interpreted as a rope-making device, around 35,000 years old. These finds matter because they show a level of thinking that is easy to miss. Ancient people were not only making sharp edges, they were engineering flexible strength. And again, ask yourself when that work happens. Not while sprinting after animals. Not while crossing floodwater. Not while fighting for space in a storm. It happens when the group is forced to stay, the fire is alive, and someone starts turning plant fibers into tomorrow's shelter, tomorrow's trap, tomorrow's carrying strap. Then there is bedding. Bedding sounds soft, almost domestic, but it may be one of the most important survival technologies people ever made. The ground steals heat. Insects bite. Dampness creeps into the body. Bad sleep makes bad hunters, bad parents, bad decisions. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found ancient bedding made from sedges, rushes, and grasses. Some layers included leaves from plants with insect-repelling properties. The bedding was periodically burned and replaced, suggesting people were managing pests and cleanliness tens of thousands of years ago. Think about what that means. They were not just sleeping wherever they collapsed. They were choosing materials. They were arranging space. They were controlling insects. They were cleaning by burning old bedding and replacing it. They were making a shelter into a home. That matters because survival is not only the dramatic moment when someone throws a spear. Survival is also the quiet decision to make the ground safer before everyone goes to sleep. And after fire, tools, rope, clothing, and bedding, there is the thing that seems least necessary until you realize it might be one of the most human things of all. Art. Cave art is where old stereotypes about ancient humans fall apart completely. The paintings at places like Chauvet, Lascaux, Altamira, and Sulawesi are not clumsy marks from people with nothing better to do. They show animals with movement, memory, anatomy, tension, and observation. Horses turn. Lions stalk. Rhinos stand with weight. Some animals seem to move as the firelight shifts. These artists knew the animals. They had watched them for thousands of hours. They remembered posture, muscle, danger, speed, and shape. And many of these images are deep inside caves, far from daylight. That means someone carried light into the dark. Someone brought pigment. Someone chose the wall. Someone made marks in a place that was not convenient. So why? Maybe ritual. Maybe teaching. Maybe memory. Maybe hunting magic. Maybe stories we cannot recover. But whatever the reason, cave art required time, firelight, and a group that could think beyond the next immediate bite of food. Long storms create exactly that kind of setting. Not because every cave painting was made during rain. We should not pretend we can prove that. But the pattern makes human sense. Outside, the world is wet and dangerous. Inside, people gather around flame. The wall becomes a surface for memory. The cave becomes more than a shelter. It becomes a screen. The fire becomes more than heat. It becomes the projector. The moving light makes painted animals flicker. Shadows make stone breathe. A story spoken in that space would not feel like a story on a page. It would feel alive. And stories may have been one of the most important things humans did when rain trapped them together. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied conversations among the Juhoansi and found a striking difference between daytime talk and nighttime firelight talk. During the day, people talked more about practical matters, work, resources, complaints, social issues. At night, around the fire, conversation shifted heavily towards stories, songs, ceremonies, and imagination. Fire changes the room. It creates a circle. It softens faces. It lowers the pressure of the day. It gives people a place to speak differently. Now imagine that circle during a storm that will not stop. No one can go far. The children are listening. The elders are watching the fire. Someone remembers where water remains in the dry season. Someone explains which plant should never be eaten. Someone tells the story of a hunter who crossed a river too early. Someone describes where the good stone can be found when the valley dries. That is not small talk. That is survival knowledge moving from one brain to another. A list can be forgotten. A story can survive. This may be one of the reasons human culture became so powerful. We did not only learn from our own mistakes, we learned from stories about mistakes made before we were born. Rain may have trapped people physically, but it also held the group together long enough for knowledge to travel. This is the deeper reversal of the whole video. Rain takes away movement, but it can strengthen memory. Rain stops the hunt, but it can sharpen the tool. Rain makes the cave dangerous, but it can also make the group closer. Rain erases tracks, but it can reveal food. Because rain does not only remove opportunities, it changes them. After rain, mushrooms appear. Certain plants grow quickly. Tubers can be easier to dig from wet soil. Insects come to the surface. Termites swarm after rain in parts of Africa, and they are rich in protein, easy to collect, and valuable food. One viewer from Kenya pointed out that some communities still eat flying termites after rain today, fried, salted, and even taken with tea. That detail matters because it turns the idea from theory into lived memory. For many people, rain does not just block food, it brings a different food. So a group that understands rain does not simply wait for the old plan to return. It changes plans. If the herd is gone, gather insects. If the soil is soft, dig roots. If rock basins fill with water, store it. If the river is too high, repair tools. If the fire is alive, use the hours. This is why the answer to the title is bigger than it sounds. What did ancient humans do when it rained all week? They did everything that still mattered when the outside world stopped cooperating. They kept the fire alive. They protected children. They watched floodwater. They listened for predators. They repaired weapons. They shaped stone. They scraped hides. They sewed clothing. They twisted fiber into cord. They made bedding. They mixed pigment. They painted animals. They told stories. They passed knowledge. They learned what rain brought after it left. And when the sky finally cleared, they did not step back into the same world. The ground was changed. The water was changed. The food was changed. And maybe the people were changed too. Not because rain magically made humans intelligent. That would be too simple. But because rain punished groups that could only survive while moving and rewarded groups that knew how to think while trapped. That may be the real secret. Clear days gave ancient humans the hunt. Rainy days gave them the workshop. Clear days tested speed. Rainy days tested memory. Clear days rewarded the spear. Rainy days rewarded the firekeeper, the toolmaker, the storyteller, the person who remembered which plant kept insects away and which hollow stone held clean water. Modern people treat rain as atmosphere. Ancient people had to treat it as a question. Can you stay warm? Can you keep the flame alive? Can you feed the group when the tracks are gone? Can you turn waiting into preparation? Can you come out of the storm stronger than you went in? And maybe that is why rainy days matter so much in human history. The clear days may have kept our ancestors alive, but the rainy days may have taught them how to become human.